Authority spends massive and constantly increasing budgets enforcing its policy of cannabis prohibition. A lot of money, a lot of taxpayers' money, pouring into this machinery to stop people taking cannabis. Don't seem to be working too well, does it? Surveys of young people carried out between 1993 and a year ago show cannabis use ranging from 53% at the minimum to 96%. 2/3 of all registered voters under the age of 25 regularly take cannabis. It's easy to smuggle cannabis into this country. It's easy to grow cannabis in the back garden, in the wardrobe. People sell cannabis because it's easy to sell cannabis. The profits are high. The risks of getting caught are low. Cannabis prohibition doesn't work, even from the point of view of those who are trying to prohibit it. Never mind our point of view. Let's put ourselves in their shoes. No, it's not working, even from their point of view. Prohibition also makes cannabis artificially expensive and spawns an absolute avalanche of acquisitive criminal behavior. Growing cannabis is easy. Thus, it has to be sold on the black market. Those who trade in it risk being sent to prison or fined. Prohibition actually poisons. There are no controls in the black market, so cannabis might be mixed with dangerous substances. It is. I've seen it. I've seen plastic hardening agents pushed into hashish in Morocco. They put in chemicals to make the outside of the hash hard and shiny. Cannabis prohibition doesn't work.
And what would you say was the most significant part of last year within the cannabis debate?
I think the Oxford Union, because it's such a prestigious sort of event, and like I say, with politicians from each side of the House of Commons on the same side, and people said to us, they said to me, if you win the debate, you'll get cannabis legalised. We won it, and it was, I think it was like 3 weeks later, David Plunkett made his announcement.
Yeah. Now, it was a year ago, pretty much to this day, that you actually first met up.
Pretty close, pretty close.
What's your interpretation of the last year?
I think it's been fantastic, hasn't it? As I said in my speech, I think the most important thing was at one time nobody was listening. And the big difference that we've made in the last year is that people are now listening.
What can you see ahead for yourself?
I see us campaigning on, just pressurising the government a bit further and pushing the law to as far as we can push it, really, with the coffee shops. There's going to be more and more across the UK, and the activists are going to become businessmen as well as activists, I think. We've legitimised cannabis in the UK, I think we've won. It's just the final nail in the coffin of prohibition.
It's gone really well for the cannabis campaigners, it's gone really well. I got arrested again in January, so I'm still waiting to find out if I'm going to be charged. So it hasn't gone that well, but it's a big improvement on a year ago, definitely. We're getting there slowly.
This past year has just been amazing, really. I mean, I've on and off, I've been involved with this campaign for, oh dear, I don't know, more than 10 years, I think. And I've never known a year like this. It's just been wonderful.
Well, it's been very encouraging that the fact that the Legalise Cannabis Alliance stood for Parliament seems to have made Plunkett get his finger out and propose that it become a Class C substance, which is a step in the right direction, but it's only a step in the right direction.
The way forward is to act as if we have reached our goal with the necessary discretion, because we we are still discriminated against legally. We are still treated as a strange sort of ethnic group that's not allowed to exist. Although they are looking softer on us, at the end of the day we don't need them to be anything on us whatsoever.
Before I introduce the first speaker, I'd like to explain a little bit about the Legalise Cannabis Alliance. We are a political party. We became a political party in 1999. We fought the local elections in Norwich in 1999 with 5 candidates. In September 1999, we had the honour of seeing the ex-Labour Mayor of Carlisle stand as a Legalise Cannabis Alliance candidate in the Kensington and Chelsea by-election against Michael Portillo.
And I just couldn't believe what I was reading. How can this plant be illegal after all that I've read? And how can the arguments and excuses given by governments stand up to the light of day?
I started doing CC News about 3 years ago, well exactly 3 years ago this month now, in September 1998, because I was researching the cannabis issue and I just couldn't believe what I was reading. That I had no idea. I'd used cannabis for 30 years, but I had no idea that it was so safe. I had no idea there was so much controversy. I knew nothing about it. It was a drug. But it doesn't take anyone very long just to do enough research to find out that the whole prohibition of cannabis has been a huge mistake. It's really not this evil, dangerous drug that it's been painted.
I've never, ever, from the first instance on the drug squad, been able to see the drug user of any commodity in my eyes as a criminal. Every policeman looks at every offence under law, and in his own eyes, in his own personal viewpoint, he grades them from the most minor offence to the most senior offence. I have never been able to grab the idea that a drug user was a criminal in my eyes.
Well, legalisation of cannabis fits into the same category as the legalisation of all drugs. I can't believe the mess we're getting into with prohibition, and cannabis goes along with the rest. Legalisation as an alternative policy gives us so many advantages over prohibition, and I can't believe the government won't countenance it. I use alcohol because it's legal. I don't use cannabis because it's illegal. But medically, it looks like cannabis is certainly less dangerous than alcohol, and certainly in terms of behaviour patterns socially, it's perfectly clear that cannabis is less dangerous than alcohol.
A lot of people should not be in the criminal justice system. Personally, the people I've dealt with who are under the influence of cannabis have never, ever, ever been a problem.
Now let me spell out what I'm doing here. First, I'm here as a barrister. I specialised in human rights cases in the 1960s, when many of you were just a gleam in someone's eye, if even that. How will the state justify its interference with the cannabis consumers' rights under Article 8? Which of these grounds will it choose? Because it's got to choose one, or two, or three. If it can find two, it's a better man than I am.
Well, I started for the same reason that most people do, I'd say, which is curiosity. And I found that after smoking it, I found that I liked the effect. As it turned out, apart from that, I've got spastic legs due to a lower back injury that happened when I was a kid. And you know, if I use cannabis, I either eat it or smoke it before I go to bed at night. It stops my legs twitching and allows me to get a decent night's sleep. Whereas if I was to go to bed without cannabis, it's like having one of those leg twitching machines attached to you. I've had various drugs from the hospital. And some of them worked to a degree, but the side effects were horrendous, and I couldn't function as a human being. Which with cannabis, as a daily use, I can function as a human being.
There's a lot of people with illnesses that could use cannabis, but just can't afford it. And a lot of the people that's severely disabled, people with multiple sclerosis, people undergoing chemotherapy for cancer and things like that, a lot of them physically just cannot. They haven't got the dexterity or the skills to do it. And it's sad that they have to buy it, apart from people like Colin Davis, the Medical Marijuana Cooperative, who will supply it, and others.
Stopped at traffic lights on London Bridge alongside a copper who was on duty on the Ring of Steel coming into the City of London. Torn blue Rizla packet caught his attention in the vehicle, questioned the people in the van as to why the Rizla packet was torn. He suspected illegal drug misuse, and he asked, in advance of him doing that, was anyone carrying cannabis? And I said, yes, I am, proceed to call sniffer dogs in. 3 other people were searched, the van was searched, nothing else was found. I was arrested, taken to Bishopsgate Police Station. They organised for my personal premises to be searched. Again, a sniffer dog group found a completely negative result there. Took me back to the cell that night. I turned down a caution because at that point I felt that they were in the wrong and I was innocent of any offence, and I've pursued the case since then.
If I give in now, I mean, what about all that time that I've spent in prison already? I just can't. This is too important an issue. It's not like world hunger or wars or pestilence, but it is about freedom. Do we have the right to choose to do something healthy instead of unhealthy? And can government stop us from doing it?
A plant exists, and some people want to consume it. Authority does not want people to take it. It's trade and use for any purpose. Authority has attempted to rid the planet of cannabis. It appears, though, that God or nature or some equally significant entity has done a very good job of furnishing the earth with all manner of different strains of cannabis.
What is the biggest spliff you've ever smoked?
I thought you were next to was the best.
I don't like big spliffs generally, so I'm not after the biggest spliff. You know, I don't go looking for it, but, you know, I haven't got time to wait that long before taking the first drag as far as making one is concerned. When I was a student, we used to smoke them about that long, you know.
And I take it you believe that our society can live quite happily side by side with cannabis?
If it's legalised, yeah. I mean, I don't think you can live very happily with it if it remains illegal.
Would you say that cannabis is a gateway drug?
Well, I think it is a gateway drug if it remains prohibited and sold by the same people that sell the harder drugs. I mean, the only reason there is an escalation, if there is, and I don't think there is, but if there was, that could be the only reason providing it. So legalisation would take away any escalation theory. But generally, you know, taking something and like it doesn't really make you want to take something else.
The whole essence of Howard Marks, if I can summarise you in one line, is the fact that you are completely honest about what you do.
Yeah, but I'm lucky enough to be able to be, all right? You know, because just like I said in there, it's not going to mess up my career.
I've got to just ask it. Please may I have a toke on your split?
Of course.
Right, okay. I'm sorry, I shouldn't, but listen, what the heck?